How's it going, Point Loma? Great to be with you. My name's Brian Frey, and Esteban asked me to just share a few thoughts quickly about the Sabbath. And so I'm here in my house in Arizona. Wish I was with you in person, but under the given circumstances, that can't be. So we're just going to get right into it. We're in Mark chapter 2, starting in verse 23. One Sabbath, Jesus was going through the grain fields, and his disciples walked along. They began to pick some heads of grain. The Pharisees said to him, "Look, why are they doing what is unlawful on the Sabbath?" He answered, "Have you never read what David did when he and his companions were hungry and in need? In the days of Abiathar the high priest, he entered the house of God and ate the consecrated bread, which is lawful only for priests to eat. And he also gave some to his companions." And then Jesus said to them, "The Sabbath was made for human beings, for man, not human beings for the Sabbath. So the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath." And in this passage, we get this picture of Jesus with his disciples, and there's some other people there, some Pharisees there, but they're all walking through this field on the Sabbath, on the day that the Lord commanded them, and it's one of the 10 commandments, but commanded them to not work, to rest one day a week. And so they're walking through, and Jesus' disciples are picking just little pieces of grain as they walk through and snacking on them. Now, you can do that. It's not against the law in the ancient world, except on the Sabbath. The Sabbath was to be kept because the Sabbath was one of the primary ways that distinguished the people of God from everybody else. It was so important to them. I mean, you can't really overstate it today. It was an external sign that they had a unique status with God. And it was so important, because of this, the people of God had come up with a bunch of rules and regulations so that nobody would break the Sabbath, so that everybody would not work on the Sabbath. So there's some examples from one of the ancient texts, and one of them is like, if the storm blows off your roof of your house, then you can't fix it because that would be work on the Sabbath. But what you can do is lean it up against the side of your house. Or you can't tie knots on the Sabbath. So if you tied a knot last Saturday, you're out. You can't even write one letter on a piece of parchment on the Sabbath. So, hey, you don't have to do homework on the Sabbath. So, woohoo, yeah, here we go. Hey, you can't pick from any crop or harvest any crop on the Sabbath because that was considered work. And this is what Jesus and his disciples were doing that they were questioning him about. Now, Jesus' response is super interesting to me. He says this: "The Sabbath was made for human beings and not human beings for the Sabbath." Now, I think the Pharisees, the ones questioning Jesus, are living as if the opposite is true. They're living as if human beings were made for the Sabbath. Now, the easiest picture of that for me is one that Pastor Scott Daniels gave one time, a long time ago. I heard him talking about this. And he basically said this: imagine if God was up in heaven and he was like, "Man, how can I mess with these really annoying and dirty human beings? How can I keep heaven from being overrun by these just really silly human beings? Man, I just more want it to be me and these angels. So how can we keep them out? Oh, I know. Let's make some kind of cosmic obstacle course through my rules and my laws and my commandments. So first thing, hey, let's tell them that they have to rest one day a week." And in the ancient world, nobody rested except the filthy rich and the kings and queens. Everybody had to work 7 days a week. And so if the people of God are resting one day a week, then they're getting behind in their work compared to all the other people around them. Their businesses are falling behind. Everything's falling behind. And so, of course, they won't want to keep that. They'll break that rule. So it's another way that we could keep them out and kind of mess with them. Or I know what else. You know what we could do? We could have them only have covenant monogamous relationships with each other. And that will take all the fun out of sex. And so they won't want to keep that command. And so they'll break it and it'll mess with them. It'll be awesome and nobody will get in. Or maybe we'll command them not to be jealous of others. And so anyone who's on social media today will automatically be eliminated. This is great. We can keep everybody out of heaven. And I hope this sounds ridiculous, but I think maybe we're more like the Pharisees than we realize. See, it's so easy to feel like God made up some arbitrary rules for us to follow that were just made up on a whim for his personal kicks and giggles. And when we're living in this model, in this way, in this system, in this attitude, it's typical for us to either want to reject God because, you know what, he's already trying to reject us anyways, or to follow the rules and regulations and grit our teeth and white knuckle it, only to turn around and condemn everybody else because they didn't follow it as much as we did. The problem is, that's not what Jesus said. Jesus said the Sabbath was made for human beings. See, the Sabbath was given as a gift. It was given not to kick you out, but to bring you in, even by your weekly habits, into the good and beautiful life that God created you for. See, all people were invited by God to keep the Sabbath. All people, not just the rich who could afford to take days off, but the poor too, and even the slaves of the ancient world were invited to take one day off. See, in this way, even for us today, the Sabbath is a non-legalistic and habitual reminder to us that we are human beings more than we are human doings. It protects us from the mass exploitation of people. It protects us from burnout and from making work our primary identity. It gives us a day to be reminded of God's love as well as the love of our friends and our family. See, the Sabbath is not an apparatus to kick us out or to mess with us or to prank us. No, the Sabbath is a gift to habit us into the life that is truly life. And I think, friends, it's equally true for all the other things that Jesus is inviting us to. Things like confession and purity and prayer and integrity and loving our enemies. All that stuff is given as gift, not to kick us out, but to habit us into a life that is meaningful and full of joy and love and commitment and fun. And it's the life that's truly life. It's interesting to me that Jesus mentions in our passage an Old Testament story about King David. But it's a time in the midst of David's life where he's been anointed king, but nobody is recognizing him as king yet. It's a time when some people like King Saul were trying to kill David before he could actually take the throne. And I think Jesus mentions it because it's so similar to the space that Jesus finds himself in our passage, except for the fact that Jesus' throne is different than David. See, Jesus' throne, the throne when Jesus is lifted up, was the cross. And I think those are the breadcrumbs that Mark is leading us to, that Jesus reveals a love that is unlike any other, a love that gives, that serves, that empowers, that sees, that forgives, that sets free, a love that heals. See, Jesus' cross reveals God as one who is unlike any other leader, king, boss, president, parent, or authority. It reveals a God that you can find your ultimate rest in, your ultimate Sabbath in, a God who never strays, who never stops having your good in mind. And so when he invites you to something, it's for your good, it's for my good. So my question to you as we close is simply this: what might Jesus be inviting you to this week? Because whatever it is, I know over time, it's going to help you find the rest that you've been looking for, because Jesus is our true Sabbath rest.
We're glad you were able to join us for this invitation into rest. For further resources, we invite you to check out our care package for renewal and rest. You can access that through your Canvas student account or find the Google site in the description below.